Unsurprisingly, Rockstar Games did not announce GTA 6 on March 25th, but that hasn't stopped a lot of people, myself included, from getting very hyped and very excited about the game even if it is generated by false leaks. Thus, I've spent the better part of the last week talking with my brothers, my friends, and cruising through the GTA 6 subreddit, talking about ideas, features, and things we'd all like to see in the game. So I'm finally putting my thoughts out there in video form, which I probably wouldn't have done this video had they announced the game, because if they did, we'd probably have a better idea of GTA 6, at least in terms of a setting and a time period. But since they didn't, and it looks as though an announcement is still a while off, I feel fine about sharing my ideas in this video now. And before I get into it, I just want to say that these aren't all the things I want to see in GTA 6, these are just the main things I'd like to see, the things that pop into my head when I ask myself what would I like to see in GTA 6. Also, I'm not doing the douchebag thing in saying GTA 6 needs to have all these things to be a great game. I'm not doing that at all. Rockstar Games could go in a completely different direction from these ideas and still make an incredibly great game, which is all I want at the end of the day. I'm going to play GTA 6 whenever it eventually comes out and judge it on its own merits, but for now, since we know nothing about the game, here are the things and features that I'd like to see in GTA 6. Looking at these features that I've written down and thinking about why I'd like to see them, it mostly comes back to one overarching reason that ties most of them together. Rockstar's last game, Red Dead Redemption 2, is one of the best open world games I've ever played because of how immersive and deep the world was. The level of detail was off the charts, and the more I interacted with it, the more I really felt like I was living in that world that Rockstar had created. And given that Rockstar like to build upon features from previous games in their new and upcoming games, I'm hoping for something similar with GTA 6. I don't want GTA 6 to be a simulation game per se like Red Dead 2, but for it to have an open world that feels alive and engrossing and not just a backdrop to the typical sandbox chaos. And there are some features in Red Dead 2 that I'd love to see in GTA 6 to help accomplish this, one of them being the NPC interaction. In Red Dead 2 you could interact with every NPC in the game by either greeting them or antagonizing them, and most of them gave unique responses and some of them have full-blown conversations with you. This made the open world feel lived in and inhabited by actual people who have their own lives and who respond to the things that you do. GTA hasn't really had NPC interaction on that level before. In GTA 5 you only pressed the one button and the character gave a generic kinda "hey, how's it going, man?" and most of the NPCs in return gave equally empty responses, and they just end up running away from you anyway. I'd like to see the deeper NPC interaction of Red Dead 2 in GTA 6. I mean, imagine talking to a random guy on the street and he turns out to be a small-time criminal and asks for your help, and all of a sudden a small side mission triggers where you gotta go help this guy out in a little drug deal or something. Something like that would encourage me to interact with the NPCs way more than I would compared to previous GTAs if I knew that I could get something out of it, whether it be secret missions, bonuses, and maybe even some Easter eggs. And it would help make the NPCs feel less like obstacles in the way of your path of destruction, and also less like props that are just there to give the impression of a living open world. Simple tasks required interaction as well in Red Dead 2, perhaps most notably, your horse carried your weapons and inventory and you could only carry what you could realistically carry. And I've seen a great number of people say that this feature should carry over into GTA 6 in the form of a personal vehicle which stores all of your weapons and other accessories. I'm all for this feature being in the game. It would get rid of that age-old silly GTA thing of pulling an RPG or a minigun out of your pocket, which granted is kind of part of the tongue-in-cheek charm of GTA, but if you're gonna go for realism, then I think a personal vehicle system based on the horse storage system of Red Dead is the way to go, I think. Plus they've kind of dabbled in that a tiny bit with LA Noire, where you can grab a weapon out of the trunk, so the mechanic is there, they'll just need to expand on it with a selection menu system of sorts. Now whenever you look at speculation and wish lists for GTA 6, you'll see a lot of people hoping for the game to be set in Vice City, particularly in the 1980s. And to obtain the realism that I've talked about so far, I think it would be almost crucial for the game to take place in the 80s or another time period in general. Again, it doesn't need to, but by taking place in the past, it would dial back on some of the pre-existing features of GTA and adapt them to the time period and thus make them more interactive and more immersive. For example, if you wanted to buy a car, in GTA 5 you just whip out your mobile phone and press a couple buttons and boom, you've bought a car. In a 1980s set GTA 6, if you wanted to buy a car, you'd have to go to the dealership and buy one there, or if you wanted to call a taxi, you'd have to find a phone booth. These things will sound tedious to some people, and I can understand that, but I feel like this would encourage you and pretty much force you to interact with the open world even more, and it would both engross you into the world as a living, breathing place, as well as making you feel like you're in a different period of time. Moving away from immersion for a second, I'd also love to see a 1980s setting because I am an 80s fanatic. I love 80s pop culture, 80s films, and even modern films and TV shows that take place in the 1980s. The aesthetic and vibe of the 80s is just awesome and appealing as hell. But most of all, I adore 80s music, and if GTA 6 does end up taking place in the 80s, then one of my most anticipated parts of the game will instantly be the soundtrack of the in-game radio stations. Not gonna lie, over the last week I've been listening to a ton of 80s music amidst the GTA 6 speculation just to get me into that Vice City 80s mood, which I know will be pointless if the game doesn't end up taking place in the 80s, but just listening to some of those 80s hits and imagining playing the game to those songs on the in-game radio station got me so excited for the possibility of an 80s setting. Just imagine cruising down the Vice City promenade with the neon-drenched hotels on your left and the massive beach on your right, and then something like Take On Me is blasting on the radio. Tell me that visual doesn't sound sick. Admittedly, I'd only be really down for an 80s setting if the location is Vice City, mainly because of the drug scene and all the cartel stuff that went down in Miami in the 1980s, which is just ripe for a GTA story and setting, and also because the neon aesthetic of Vice City just fits the 1980s so perfectly. I don't know, it would just feel strange if they were to announce GTA 6 set in the 1980s in San Fierro. Vice City just makes the most aesthetic and story sense for a 1980s setting, in my opinion. Also, I'd love to see Rockstar tackle a different era just in general. We've already seen them tackle the modern day and the current climates in the HD universe canon of GTA twice now, so I think it's just time to see a different era get explored, especially on the next generation of consoles. And lastly, an 80s setting would also mean no flying back bullshit in the online mode. And don't worry, I'm not going to rant about this too much because I already did that in my last video, my plea to Rockstar Games to get rid of that stuff in GTA 6, which you should check out if you haven't already. Another big element I want to see in GTA 6 are a ton of side missions and activities. Let's look at GTA San Andreas as an example, because looking back, I am just stunned at how much there was to do back in that game. Driving school, bike school, flying school, boat school, loads of girlfriends to take on dates, customized tuning cars, customizing lowriders, eating and gaining weight by going to restaurants, and then losing that weight by going to the gym. And in some of those gyms you can learn different fighting styles. Then you've also got trucking missions, train freight missions, home invasion burglary missions, importing and exporting vehicles, stadium events like destruction derbies in the Blood Rim Bangers, quarry missions, ping missions, which I completely forgot about, valet parking missions, courier missions. There was so much stuff to do in that game, and that's not even mentioning the classic vigilante missions, paramedic missions, and firefighter missions, which I'd love to see make a return as well. Pizza boy missions from the old GTAs, throw all of those back in there, as well as some new side missions like bus driving missions, garbage man missions in the Trash Masters, lifeguard missions. Some people will say that these kind of missions and activities would be there just for the sake of being there, but the thing is, that's what I want. I want this world to be full of things to see and do, because the thought of just going almost anywhere on the map and finding some kind of side mission strand or activity to do that'll make me interact with the world even more and further engross me into it is just so tantalizing and exciting to me. If they could have that many missions and activities back in San Andreas in 2004, then I don't see why they couldn't have just as much, if not more, in GTA 6 in 2021, 2022, whenever it ends up coming out. Lastly, there are a couple of more features from Red Dead 2 that I'd like to see in GTA 6, one of them being the gore and the dismemberments. Do I really need to explain why I want to see that? Shooting a guy in the head with a double-barrel shotgun and seeing his head explode into smithereens in Red Dead 2 was just a thing of beauty. And if they can do it in Red Dead, why not GTA? And one last Red Dead 2 feature they should bring over to GTA 6 is hotels. Another thing that I missed in GTA 5 were the multiple purchasable safe houses across the map. I'd like to see those come back either as actual new homes to buy or as hotels and motels in the city and other small towns across the map. This would add another element to the world to interact with, but it would would also make it easier to manually save the game by removing a potentially long ass drive back to the one safe house on the other side of the map. So that concludes my GTA 6 wishlist wanted features video. Again, these aren't all the things I'd like to see in the game. I'm sure there would be more if I really thought about it, more little features, but these are the main juicy things that would make GTA 6 a dream for me. Again, the game doesn't need this stuff to be good, it's just my personal most wanted features of the game prior to the official announcement. If they attempt to achieve anything close to what I've described in this video, that'll send my excitement hype meter further through the atmosphere than it already is. I truly believe that these elements mixed in with the classic GTA tropes of stealing cars, shooting guns, causing mayhem and rising through the criminal ranks in the story mode could make for the ultimate GTA experience, but we'll just have to wait and see what Rockstar has come up with. Thanks very much for watching as always guys, and my obvious question to you is, what is your GTA 6 wishlist? What do you want to see in the game? What features, what missions, what side activities? Just list everything you want to see in GTA 6 in the comments below. Let's have a fun bit of speculation down there, and if you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe and I'll see you all next time.